Someone said John Fury's got to make an appearance. So it's not the time or place, but I did say I wouldn't try and shoehorn in some sort of impression. But I doubt that the political diatribe is going to make the episode, given it's completely irrelevant.
No,
so
this is the episode. This is the episode so far. It's going to be 20 minutes of us talking about screenplays and Alan.
Oh no, you can't include. Definitely don't include the screenplays. That's top secret information. That's copyrighted information. You can't be including any of that. That was off the record. Phil wasn't on the call, so.
Oh, shit. And
now, if this does make it, everyone will be going, "Oh, I wonder what that's about. That sounds exciting." But I launch my Tommy Robinson style grifting Kickstarter, everyone will sign up for it and make me rich. Yeah. Phil, I'll tell you later. What people are here to talk about though, right? Connor, it's your show, but Kyle Crawford, Canelo Alvarez, right?
Yeah. Are we gonna start? Is that it? I mean we're on short time, I know.
You've not even done the whole weapon the heavy hands on Conor Rebush and all that shit yet. And probably at this point now, the intro music will start coming in as I want to do. I would love to pinpoint the intro for you. You'll start fading me out about now, and then you'll come in with the intro proper. I've heard enough episodes, such as the one last week when I heard you saying, "Oh yeah, Kyle was too good for us. He never comes on anymore." And the fucking people know that I've been hunting you down to get on this show, and you never fucking reply.
You've been hunting me down.
Yeah, I fucking tagged you more than once. You don't fucking even reply to me. Phil knows.
Yeah, you monster.
How easily Phil switches sides. Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Heavy Hands. I'm Connor. With me as always is Phil.
Hello.
And our sojourning guest, fan favorite, host favorite, back to talk Canelo Crawford with us. It's Mr. Kyle McLachlan.
You are recording, aren't you? We've been talking for half an hour. Have you actually recorded?
I was recording all of that,
too. Is it automatically recorded?
Yeah, sign up to the Heavy Hands Patreon for a special bonus episode in which Kyle admits several embarrassing details about his life.
Yeah, that's not true, really, though, is it?
And his interests which have landed him on a series of UK watch lists.
No, there ain't nothing wrong. No,
the various rings
I'll tell you what,
that he's a part of.
Sign up to his Patreon to hear why that's not true. Then sign up to my Patreon at patreon.com/Combat Chronicles, and I can tell you how much of a cunt this bloke is.
That's been bleeped.
Oh, no. Just the bad word, not the rest of it, surely. Hello. Thanks for having me. It's brilliant, being a prized guest and clearly a fan favourite, how much work I actually have to do to get booked on the show. So it's almost fun giving up my own time for free and having to work hard to do it. So, thank you very much for having me.
So happy to accommodate you, There's only so many shows, Kyle. I can't have you on every single one.
Jesus Christ. I asked you to be on this show, right, last week, because people wanted me to be on the show. Then we're like 24 hours notice, like, any chance you could do the show tomorrow? We're desperate. We need someone who knows what they're actually talking about. I'm like, I fucking asked you last week. I asked you. And you were like, I didn't see that. So, thanks, mate. Cheers.
The smooth running machine, this podcast.
Phil, why do I always have to speak to you? Because apparently you're not just co-host. Because you're not, you're the co-host of the show and also his PA.
My handler.
Because what the fuck is he doing with his time? What the fuck is he doing with his time?
PA makes it sound like I'm sort of in charge. Phil is more my handler. He's sort of my,
he's in charge.
He's my rank.
I'm just the one who has to, look after the star.
No, it's not. It's like Hong Kong Philly, mate.
Go and ring someone up to say Connor's fallen asleep in a Denny's again.
Yeah.
Someone go drag him out.
He has to get a flight to Cincinnati so he can get out his laser pointer and bait me into my computer chair to record.
Yep.
Come here.
Oh my god, he's foaming at the mouth. He's overdosed. No, don't worry, it's just mayonnaise from the burger he's fallen asleep whilst eating. That's all it is.
Welcome to Heavy Hands. Kyle is here to talk about one fight and one fight only. And that is the boxing super fight, or mega fight as they kept calling it. Is mega bigger than super?
Yeah, I guess so. It's all made up bollocks, but yeah, I guess so.
Terence Crawford, Canelo Alvarez happened last weekend in Riyadh. We made it the second segment of our show last week because we know you, our fans, are...
It happened in Vegas, by the way, just quickly.
Oh, did it really? That's why the crowd was so fun. Good. It was a Riyadh season event, but in Vegas.
Every Riyadh season never ends, right?
Yeah. That's why all the various female celebrities are there with their heads uncovered. Terence
Careful.
Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez was certainly the most high-level fight of the weekend. And Phil and I will have some other fun stuff to talk about from the UFC card later on, but that's why Kyle's here, to talk to us about boxing. And wouldn't you know it, Phil? We picked it correctly.
Ugh.
Who saw that
Seems
coming?
unnatural.
It doesn't seem right.
Doesn't feel right.
Kyle, did you think Terence Crawford was going to win?
Obviously, if you were signed up to my Patreon, you would know that I said there was too many unknowns to pick this fight safely.
Cop-out. Huge cop-out.
Yeah, not really a cop-out. I did like a 20-minute breakdown, about the whole fight, the histories of the fighters, again, available at patreon.com/Combat Chronicles. Told you how both guys could potentially win, but just said, it's difficult to envision how the fight will look. And
that's about
overall,
exactly what we said, as you would know if you listened.
Yeah, which of course I did listen because I heard you calling me out at the end of the episode. So I think that overall, even if I'd picked Crawford based on styles, I wouldn't have picked it to be as much of a whitewash. Now Connor's going to go, I had Canelo at 115, 113 actually, because that's what he does. I thought Canelo won every round. That's what he does all the time.
Gorge.
And everyone on YouTube will go like, fucking moron, you can't score a fight, because it always happens. Now, for me,
to be fair, Connor hasn't put out any of his controversial boxing scores for a decade.
For at least a decade. Whereas your progeny, Kyle, your vaping scooter inheritors, since disowned, are constantly turning in bad scorecards. We talk about that in the show on a regular basis.
I don't pay attention to any of that shit. I'm just telling you right now. High level fight. Knew it was going to be as such. Thought it might be a bit of a staring contest. It wasn't, for reasons we'll get into. Just want to say, if you do want to hear my thoughts about other fights, again, go to that Patreon link. And the best fight of the weekend was Diego Lopes versus Sean Silva, because that might have been the best fight I've seen all year.
That was the best in terms of pure action. But
it was wonderful.
It was also, wonderful. Having watched it immediately after catching Canelo Crawford, it was also a bit of a joke, right? That's kind of the experience.
Sure. But performance of the year, when I get to the end of year Combat Chronicles Awards, again, available at patreon.com/Combat Chronicles, may well go to Terence Bud Crawford for this incredible all-round performance against Canelo. And Connor, please proceed with your questions.
So where to begin? I feel I'm reeling. I'm on the back foot. Much like Terence Crawford was throughout most of this fight. I mean,
Oh, no, I don't agree with that.
we talked about Canelo's, it's hard to say difficulties. Canelo is a very good fighter. It's like talking about the things Floyd Mayweather struggled with when he was operating, The best you had to look at were fights that weren't completely smooth sailing. We talked about the southpaw thing. We talked about the mobility of Crawford. I think these things were frustrations for Canelo. I think that was the main thing that came through in this fight, actually, was how increasingly pissed off Canelo Alvarez got having to fight Terence Crawford. Maybe you catch his body language as we got to the final 3 rounds of this fight, when Crawford would step in with like a body jab and then pop him with a quick one upstairs. Canelo was turning away. He was rolling his eyes. He was having a miserable, miserable time dealing with Terence Crawford. I think that more than anything sums up what a great performance this was by Bud.
Is there a question in there, or
give me your thoughts, Kyle? What do you think, Kyle? I'm sorry, this is the first time in my entire acquaintance with you you've needed an invitation to share your thoughts. So,
well, it's easy as to forget sometimes. It is your show. So
is it?
basically, like when I think about it, great performance by Bud, no doubt about it. But like also sort of demonstrates how sort of shallow Canelo's skill set has become in recent years. And I said it on my own show, like post Bivol, there's been this kind of thought of, is Canelo past it, or is he fighting to the level of his opposition? And it's a little bit of both, because he couldn't raise his game to the level of his opposition here, because what he does now is quite trite compared to what he was like in his prime. Now, you spoke about issues Canelo's had stylistically in the past, and I spoke on my own show about how he'd shored these up over the years, how he'd become a bit of a better ring cutter, but also just in terms of how he would leverage what he was good at by surrounding it with other things that maybe he wasn't so good at in his younger days. So he's just way better at feinting, way better at using body feints and upper body movement, head movement, deft head movement in the pocket to leverage his opponents into countering opportunities. In this one, to tie into what you're saying, Conor, about the frustration that boiled over, you saw Canelo basically trying to rush him. And he was rushing him because he was throwing the right hand like a baseball pitcher with little to no setup, which is, regardless of his issue with movement, was not something he did in his middleweight and 168 prime. And the early solutions he had to Bud Crawford, stopping him sliding out to Bud's own right with the left hook to the body, was something that he repeated but didn't really build on. Whereas in his prime, he would always build into combinations and often use single shots and setups as means of diverting his opponent's eyes. Didn't really see much there. It was just steaming into Bud Crawford. And what you found was, and what I thought was brilliant about Bud, and we'll talk about the brilliance of Bud, no doubt, in this episode, but how he mastered all ranges of the fight, which made Canelo not too eager to fire off. So it's not a durability issue, because I don't think Bud's a massive puncher at 168. And Canelo is just notoriously, he's one of the most durable guys of all time, right? He's fought so many decent punches. He's just immensely tough. He won't really take a backward step as a reset. You can count the amount of times he's been legitimately stunned on like one hand. It's like lots of weight cutting as a young guy when he got briefly stunned, caught cold by Jose Miguel Cotto, which is Miguel Cotto's brother. Jose Angel Cotto? Can't remember. Anyway, Miguel Cotto's shit brother, right? And, Golovkin got his respect a couple of times. Outside of that, it just doesn't really happen. So that wasn't really a concern, but it was Crawford's ability to get off first and last. That was what sort of froze Canelo in his tracks, stopped him tracking Crawford, made him reluctant to try and throw because he knew he was going to get run into something, and just sort of coupled with his lack of creativity, lack of variety, made this a slam dunk for Crawford before you even add in how brilliant, versatile, and just how great Crawford is in the pocket, on the outside, at jabbing range, the amount of feints he was throwing in, the way he was able to slide left and right. For me, the perfect sequence of the fight, I'm pretty sure it was the last 10 seconds of round 8. There's very little to do. There was no punching happening. But if you watch the last 10 seconds of round 8, I'm pretty sure it's, forgive me if it's not, just watch the last 10 seconds of every round from 7 till 9. Yeah, like Crawford slid, he was against the ropes, he slid left, he slid right, he slid left, slid right. He was just completely joshing with Canelo, and Canelo just reset, chase, reset. Oh God, I just can't get anywhere near him. And then Crawford just shot off the ropes, pivoted out, and retook center.
Canelo was actually,
I remember the sequence, but
in that moment, he was actually looking pretty quick in his feet, and he was trying to feint to like draw Crawford into overcommitting to one direction or the other. Just could not get lined up on him. And after that, I don't know if you caught this, he tried a glove touch with Terence Crawford.
Yeah.
And Crawford looked him in the face and refused it.
As if to say, I've got you, boy. And also,
and his coaches caught that. His head coach in the corner looked to the other corners as they were coming up onto the apron. He said he tried to touch his gloves. They caught that. They knew. They were in his head.
It then felt like a conscious decision from Bud in the first minute of round 9, even if it did have to take a breather after that, to invite the pocket exchanges. Is to say, right, I'm here now. I'm going to show you that isn't going to work either. That 12th round as well, you mentioned, Canelo sort of went for it, and I think Bud felt that he could take the punches at that point. But he could take the punches more than anything because he could see him coming a mile off. For a guy like Crawford who's so good at rolling with shots, I don't think he's a defensive savant to the level of someone like Pernell Whitaker reflexively, but just catching shots on elbows and gloves, he's so good at catching shots and, getting his guard up, just pulling away, stepping around guys. He's great at that. I think he felt that just he could see the shots coming. And when you can see the shots coming, you can feel the shots a bit better. So for Canelo, who's been a puncher all the way up to light heavyweight, lest we forget when he broke down Sergey Kovalev, not the most durable guy, but a strong light heavyweight who did nonetheless fight at cruiserweight as well. The fact of the matter is that Terence Crawford was never really in any danger. I think maybe after that 9th round, they had the little butt. I think he was happy for the reset. Maybe the pace was a bit too much, but strength-wise, just so quick to be able to turn Canelo. And actually, what I got from this fight more than anything was last bit before I hand back to you guys, is so much has been made about who is the best pound-for-pound fighter in boxing right now. Is it Crawford? Is it Usyk? And so much has been made over the years about how Usyk is a big Lomachenko. And it's pretty clear to me that given how adept they are in the clinch, moving bigger guys around through fundamentals in the clinch, their ability to, fight at all ranges, to beat bigger guys, their insistence at feinting, their ability to step around guys, their in and out movement, their defensive ability, their incredible chins. Apart from the switch hitting that Crawford does, Usyk is essentially a massive Terence Crawford. They're so similar as fighters in terms of what they bring to the table. So let's stop debating over who is the actual best. They're both equally good. We can debate who has the better legacy in terms of the resume, but Terence Crawford and Alexander Usyk are far and away the 2 best pound-for-pound fighters in boxing, and therefore may well be the 2 best pound-for-pound fighters in all the combat sports.
Yeah.
Yep.
Phil, you got any thoughts on that?
I fully agree. I've heard people, again, I don't have the history of someone like Kyle in terms of boxing, but people have been saying these two. I mean, Kyle, has said it basically on about Usyk, is that he's not just a
where's he said
pound
that?
for pound great, but he's one of the best ever to do it at his weight classes, undoubtedly. And I think Crawford is now making that case as well.
And Kyle, where did you say that? I'm not sure where do I find you saying things like that?
www.patreon.com/Combat Chronicles. Right. Also on your show for free, under some duress.
But like Carl said, we also were sort of hemming and hawing over this one because it was so difficult to tell. I mean, it's such a huge jump from Crawford to make in terms of the weight. You just never know how someone's going to react in that kind of situation. And
he looked great. He looks physically fantastic.
Yeah.
You just don't know, is the weight going to slow them down? Are they going to, are they suddenly, is it going to be like, the old Frank Mir versus Brock Lesnar thing where they kind of bulk up and then it means nothing? It's just entirely cosmetic weight and they just get bullied.
Is he going to be able to manage his energy the same way, right?
Yeah. Canelo, a big physical force. Lots of what he managed to get done against Golovkin through their fights was just bossing him around, taking his shots and going quantity for quality with quality for quantity with Gennady Golovkin, which was in retrospect and at the time still one of the strangest dynamics of that fight, which is that Golovkin is the volume guy and Canelo is the power guy.
Mm-hmm.
And given all these dynamics, it was really hard to pick how this was gonna look in any way. One thing that made me feel better about it was reading that a piece that was going around. I think I saw it on Twitter. I don't think that many people were sharing it, but I thought it was very, very good. It was by Elliot Warsall about Terence Crawford finally playing the game. How he's gone from being this relatively, this incredibly impenetrable, disinterested, I'm just here to fight person to someone who's actually, trying to get massive paydays like this one. But it was while I was reading that, I was actually in a pub, in a gig in the basement of a pub that was being run by one of my friends was playing in, who is I think he was in a gay punk band called The Flesh Happening, who have since
have they got a patron? Or?
Well, they've reformed under a different name, and now do sort of Bell and Sebastian style acoustic covers of their old songs, "Shit on Me" and "I Like Nuns." So I was in this pub, like, watching one of the other warm up acts playing with a interpretive ballet dancer in front of it as well. But I was also reading.
Did I just drop acid halfway through this podcast?
I'm waiting for it. You got to be patient, Kyle.
And I was reading this article at the time, being who I am. I was reading this article about Terence Crawford and quite pissed. And I was thinking, like, I felt happier about picking Terence Crawford because he is one of those people who, at that time, and even more so now, feels like he is showing you, like, a true face of boxing. Like, he is like an avatar of something in boxing and combat sports as a whole. And, like, the thing that he demonstrates is just this kind of, the thing that he represents is just this kind of ruthless mirror. Like, he's just like the ruthless indifference of boxing personified. You know, you cannot possibly nail him down. You can't define him. I mean, you know, me and Connor were talking about how, you know, all of his fights are often defined by, like, you know, a big knockdown, a big turning point. And there are, you know, he did hit Canelo hard in this fight. Mm-hmm. You know, there's the famous GIF that people have been sharing everywhere of, like, Canelo turning away and sort of going, huh?
The one where he tried to make it look like he head rolled the shot that hit him incredibly clean.
He's like a spin to take the damage off, and it just makes it look like he's a Looney Tunes character. But yeah, he's just this, like, you couldn't have predicted that it would look like this, because you never can. He's just this kind of, sort of faceless avatar I can't put any better than, like, weird, brutal indifference. You just get the impression that you are looking at someone who just represents something pure in boxing, in the same way that, like, you did with the sort of violence of Golovkin or the defense of, like, Whitaker or something like that. That just made me feel better about it. Even before the fight had happened, I just started thinking about that. Like, he's just that guy. But yeah, the actual fight itself, I mean, much like his fight against Spence, he just clearly had decided from the beginning, we're doing the southpaw. I don't need to get any data. I don't need to get any data by fighting him in orthodox. Crawford's defense, I think, in southpaw is now good enough that he can we now know he can just fight entire fights that way, and it allowed him to maximize the distance. Canelo was still pretty uncomfortable with the southpaw jab, was basically trying to find ways to cut under it with and corral him with the hooks. But like Carl said, he couldn't follow it up with anything. He couldn't really find the positioning, and it was mostly just Bud peppering him all night. It
was a notably one and done performance from Canelo, it has to be said. And I think what you said earlier, Kyle, like the idea of Crawford insisting on being first and last in the exchanges, or at the very least not allowing Canelo to get a last word. I mean, I don't think Crawford got hit once on the reset in this entire fight. Every time he just chose to disengage, it was with a good pivot, on an angle, defensively responsible. I don't think there was a single exchange in the entire fight where Canelo was able to surprise him at the end of it as he was trying to reset.
Which is crazy, because that's one of the things that, like, at least I thought I could call out before this fight, is that, Crawford can sometimes get, carried away with what he thinks are going to be the effects of his punches. That's, and he does tend to get hit clean in almost every fight in exactly that
and he
kind
was
of way.
selling out on some goofy punches in this fight. There's no question about that.
He just landed all of them, or wasn't in position to get hit afterwards.
Yeah,
he landed some half decent digs, but really, Crawford just seemed there were few and far between even. But as I say, scoring wise and ebb and flow wise, he was able to consistently reclaim the initiative and not allow Canelo to get a foothold in it, because that first and last thing. And as the fight goes on, he just starts doing really audacious things. He's baiting the parry to set up double attacks. He's throwing it straight, knowing that Canelo will bat it down, and knowing that he's immediately going to throw the same hand as a hook once the hand is already down. He's bang, bang, there you go. And then he starts doing it with the uppercut. It's a straight into the uppercut, or vice versa. These double attacks from the same side, that Canelo is so busy trying to defend the first one that he hasn't got time to even see the second one coming.
That one little short left hook off the left straight that he landed.
Yes, beautiful.
Which looked shockingly hard given the position he threw it from. I think he threw that left hand keeping his weight back so that he could follow it up. A non-committal.
I knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
He's thinking ahead, just like I said earlier. That's what Canelo used to do. Canelo is a sort of perfect storm of Canelo not doing that anymore, Crawford being better at it anyway, and Canelo always struggling with people that can keep him on the move, because Canelo's got that sort of James Toney syndrome where he's sort of concrete-footed.
Yeah.
Great natural counter-puncher, great pocket fighter. If you can keep him on the move, you're not going to stop him. You're going to limit him. Well, he's going to limit himself even more with the approach he takes now, which is he's very much settled into that. I've fallen in love with my power style. You can compare him to post-Rooney Mike Tyson. You can compare him to post-prime Wilfredo Gomez, a guy that has forgotten all the skills that made him such a great puncher in the first place, and that composite puncher nature rather than just brute force. And I think Canelo fought I'm not saying he fought as in his thinking, but he fought like someone who now I'm talking about him thinking, could take out a smaller man if only I can just grab hold of him. If I can get close enough to this guy. And Crawford was like, all right, come and get close to me. And you're going to see again that timing, distance, speeds, nous, strategy, tactics, whatever you want to say, that's all more important than you landing one shot on me. And that's where that sort of frustration boils over. What's great about the fight was afterwards, Canelo, there's no excuses. It's just, I tried really hard. He was better than me. Isn't that great? That's why we love Canelo, right?
Yeah.
However, I do have a bit of a sort of, I think now we can really see who he is as a fighter, and this idea of Canelo as an all-time great just through his weight jumping and whatnot. I think you can kind of see that in his absolute prime, not only did he paper over some of those cracks with great growth and great strategy and great mind, great eyes, also they've never really matched him with anyone that was able to keep him on the move like this, that also had a sort of bolt-on skill set that could challenge him. If you look back to the last time someone really made him struggle movement, it was Erislandy Lara, but he was sort of one note in terms of his offense. Crazy enough, he's still around at middleweight. That's how bad 160 is right now.
And is more of a puncher now. Maybe they should rematch. We'll find out if Lara is actually a problem.
Maybe. Let's get that controversial one settled. That fight was always, what's the phrase? Half a dozen of one and another, or whatever people say. I hate phrases like that, but that's really what it was. It was a what do you like kind of fight. Yeah. It was Mayweather before that, who was just was Floyd Mayweather, and it was Bivol after that. It was Mayweather first showed him the issues, and we'd seen issues before with Canelo against lesser movers, someone like Trout, for example, Lara, that just proved it yet again, and then really over that, someone like Danny Jacobs or not, did he fight him? I don't remember him really giving him too many issues because Canelo had the all-round skill set, but not really a skilled mover, a big sort of box-first guy. Someone like Jamal Charlo, for example, that was negative movement. That William Skull, that wasn't pure boxing, that was negativity. What you see now is Canelo against someone who can box and also has the composite skills to bolt on to outbox him And now I see that he only papered over the cracks. When they get wet, that will tear off, and those issues would always be there. And in this fight, you sort of saw him getting drowned. So
yeah.
I think now we can really see what Canelo's level was, which was a definite world-class fighter and a definite pound-for-pounder, and a guy who was ultimately one of the top 150 fighters of all time. But, if we can say that Alexis Arguello had inherent problems with his style, and that's a top 50 of all-time fighter,
right,
then it's not unfair to say about Canelo as much as his cult would see it as pure hate. I love Canelo, but the fact of the matter is the matchmaking over the last sort of 10 years of his prime has been guys that more often than not, he'll be able to get into his preferred range. And what we saw now is a reverting to that Mayweather sort of fight, which is against the elite of the elite, even against guys that are naturally smaller than him, as was the case for Floyd and Terence Crawford. He's all at sea. He's not good enough. So there's no shame in that. And He was big enough to admit that himself. But I don't think he's not the elite of the elite.
Yeah.
Terence
Although I think you raised a good point before, and maybe this is what you mean by, things were papered over, whatever. I think we were talking about the possibility of Canelo being shot and how much he might have deteriorated. I don't think he's gotten a whole lot slower.
No, it's not physical. It's not physical. It's all about approach, I swear.
Yeah,
I'm sure
and I think you could
about
see
approach.
in this fight some parts of the approach are better. I actually thought he did a pretty good job cutting off the ring and trying to keep Crawford in front of him, which only made Crawford's ability to prevent him from setting his feet effectively the more impressive. Because Canelo, he was much worse when he fought Lara at cutting off the ring. And Trout than he was here. But it's a stylistic deterioration. And I'm not sure how much.
Do think that's true.
I'm not sure how much. Maybe if he was the more defensively kind of supple Canelo Alvarez that he was 5 or 6 years ago, he still would have struggled here, because would he have been able to pick up on the incredibly clever combination attacks of Terence Crawford with the speed and the deception baked into all of Crawford's combinations still have thrown him? I don't know, but
yeah. I mean, I find myself thinking that what really has kept Canelo an elite fighter has been the combination of incredible defense in the pocket and outrageous durability, which has basically allowed him to walk down people when he might not otherwise have been able to, and to contest them in the pocket. But I think, and it's allowed him to just, again, he had moments like this in the Triple G fight where Golovkin is just kind of jabbing him up, but Canelo is always able to find the counter once Golovkin, finished his combination and ended in the pocket, and Canelo could find something, and it would be, 3 jabs from Golovkin, 1 big right hand from Canelo. Right. How do you score this kind of thing? And that sort of continued until Golovkin himself washed out. But yeah, it's the fact that we've never seen people who are able to pry open that defense, or very rarely seen people who have been able to pry that defense open from the perspective of someone who is either just quicker and of a comparable size, or just bigger than him. Like Bivol was, because there's a limit to how much, trunk and head movement and parries and so on can take you. You can only be so good if you have concrete feet and you are trying to, slip and counter everything with trunk and head movement. Eventually the odds can get away from you.
Right.
And I think, or people can just start setting you up and pulling your reactions out of you in a way. But yeah, as Kyle said, I just don't think there's been that many people that have been able to do that kind of thing. Bivol was able to do it through
sheer
size
volume.
And pace, and Crawford is able to do it because he's got both incredible footwork and is just an immensely crafty boxer with tremendous defense who didn't give anything away.
Like, he would, like, what you guys are saying is basically true, because I think, like, Canelo, like, would he have ever beaten him? I don't know, but would he give himself a better chance? There's also the idea, of course, that he wasn't able to do any of that because he was against. But actually, I think, like, you can see enough of it in recent fights against far lesser opponents to see it's not just a Crawford-centric problem. It really is, like, as I say, like a tactical aggression. He would have given himself a better chance. I mean, in this fight, he won 5 rounds in a fight that I probably gave him 2 in, not on the official scorecards. I mean, like, he won 5 rounds. So the idea that maybe 3 years ago, if you put him in some sort of time machine, either Crawford moves up back then and he's exactly the same, or you put this version of Crawford against a better Canelo, like against like 4 years ago. So Canelo could feasibly win because, you know, the Canelo tax was a real thing back then, and he's won 5 rounds here in a fight. I'd love to hear what you guys think, even if he didn't officially score it, but I think I gave Canelo 2 rounds, maybe 3 at max.
Yeah, I was struggling to find Canelo rounds, I've got to be honest.
Same. I mean, the fifth was
it's closer to a 120-108 than a 115-113, right?
I would say so.
Surely.
The fifth was like a clear round for him, and then maybe there's like round 9 or something. Crawford kind of takes it off a bit. I don't know. I mean, the thing is it was a pretty consistently active fight from Canelo, and he was definitely sort of half getting in a lot of body shots when there were like minute-long stretches of Crawford just moving and not really doing much. But it's hard to call any of it particularly clean or effective work for basically the entire fight.
And 40 million viewers on Netflix, by the way. So this is ultimately good for boxing fans, even if, and I'd love to, you know, away from the fight itself, the presentation was abysmal, and it was painful to watch due to the commentary and whatnot, and the fact that the fight shone as much as it did in the wake of the presentation, in the wake of them already trying to make Dana and the brand the star of the show, because then they get people believing whatever they say, because, of course, when the brand is bigger, the fighters have less leverage. It's not really going to work in Canelo and Crawford's sense, but in time it may well do. So it's sort of a bit worrying in that regard. But it being so easily accessible is great, because now more people are witness to Crawford's greatness. You used to get Leonard Duran on, you know, ABC, or, well, I think that was HBO actually, but you would have got a big fight on ABC back in the day. Ali would have been on NBC or ABC back in the 70s. It would have been surely on closed circuit, but the internet meant that you could get these fights repeated pretty quickly on terrestrial TV. Tens of millions of people are watching. This is how legends are born, right? That wasn't really happening when Crawford was fighting, say, Sean Porter or something. But a fight like this against someone that people really know in Canelo, it's crazy that for now Crawford is probably, he kind of bungled it after Spence, right? He had so much momentum after the Spence fight. Everyone was talking about him. He's only fought once in the last 2 years against Madrimov, a fight that unfortunately not many people care about, even though they should. He didn't look that great in that one, even though he won clearly. Now, when he's talking about retirement, and Bomac, his trainer, apparently says he got 1 foot out the door, he's never got more of a chance to be a crossover star than he has now. He still looks like he's banging his prime. I hope he keeps fighting. But the fact matter is, Crawford now, in the next year, he can take 1 or 2 fights here that could really push him. Like when Usyk beat Dubois the other week, people started saying, journalists, not people that I consider the most sensible, but people who have got a big name, broadcasters, ex-fighters, whatever, Usyk might be one of the top 10 greatest pound-for-pound fighters of all time. Even I don't agree with that necessarily, but that will be the sort of accepted storyline for someone like Crawford if he has another fight like this, which he gets on Netflix in front of a big audience. So it's really good for him that this is happening. I think Max Kellerman just needs to be taken outsid and executed. I don't need to see him. You know,
Max
the wrong brother got right. As distasteful as that is to say, it's true. He was awful. He was desperately trying to say something profound. He sounded moronic throughout. And actually, you know, I think most people will pick up on that being hyperbole. The hyperbole was not needed. The performance spoke for itself. Canelo's reputation speaks for itself, even amongst casual boxing fans. I think people that aren't aware of Crawford before, like you and I and Phil, we've all spoke about Crawford on this podcast before. And we've been banging the drum for years, which is crazy considering the first time I really came to analysing him, I didn't really see that much special about him. And what jumps out over years of consistency is that all-terrain style, rather than anything that leaps off the page. It's all the little bits in between. It's all the little bits in between. When we talk about great MMA fighters, right, it's the bits they do in transition. That's what's great about Bud Crawford. And now, hopefully, more people can get on board and he'll come back and fight again, and people can really feel like they're witnessing something special. Because as a boxing historian, to go back to your point, Phil, about context and what have you, we are witnessing something special. Bud Crawford is a really, really special fighter.
That was what made this fight so hard to break down in the first place. I think for me, even more than the weight jump, which was obviously a big problem, it's just there's kind of an essential unknowableness to Terence Crawford's game. Like, you want to look at it from a cold analytical perspective, which you can for so many fighters. And you're like, well, this particular skill slots into that particular weakness and so on and so forth.
Exactly, yeah.
But Crawford's real great skills are quite intangible. It is like incredible poise, a supernatural sort of understanding of the flow of the fight and the psychology of the opponent, how to dictate, how to like give the opponent the optics you want to give them, how to like, I think and that's why I started saying this at the beginning. Like, I think Terence Crawford kind of broke Canelo Alvarez's spirit in this fight. And
I agree.
I don't even think that happened in the Bivol fight. I think Floyd Mayweather is the only other person who has frustrated and demoralized Canelo Alvarez quite like that. Like, Erislandy Lara annoyed him and pissed him off, but Terence Crawford convinced Canelo Alvarez that he could not beat Terence Crawford in this fight.
You're right about Bivol. In round 9, like, Canelo was still trying to cut off the ring, still trying to get in the fight, still believed he could win, and unless he didn't seem to. Sorry, Phil.
Yeah, I mean, that's just that thing about Crawford. He's just this terrifying, ruthless mirror. Like, again, like, we didn't even know how he'd really approach this fight. And all he seems, and, you know, Mayweather was the closest to being able to do this to people in general in recent memory. But even then, you know, there was a lot of consistency to the way Mayweather would have his, you know, would conduct his fights, particularly in his late career. You know, he would land like a few hard right hands and jab people up a bit, and then he would clinch and make sure that like nothing much else was going to happen. And, you know, with Crawford, you cannot even tell what you're going to get from fight to fight. I mean, you know, even this fight itself, you know, he starts off and he's mostly sort of jabbing him up from the outside, and he ends up just kind of banging it out with him in the pocket for the last
getting low, meeting him with the shoulder, and throwing 5-punch combinations in, like, not even the pocket, like in the phone booth.
Yeah.
In his chest. I mean, who thought that was going to happen?
I've never seen a fighter in any combat sport, really, who just presents a mirror to his opponent, or just like you know, when they fight him, it's just he just says, "What are you bad at?" And it's just there's a version of Terence Crawford that will step out of the corner that will be bad for you.
Yeah,
like, he's just such a unique fighter in such an initially unmemorable way.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you just look at any one of those fights in isolation, apart from the ones where it gets to this, you know, this kind of level, and you're seeing him, you know, dismantle Canelo and Spence and so on. But you watch his other fights and you're just like, oh yeah, his opponent just looks pretty flawed.
Yeah, he used to sort of build his way into fights. You see him sort of like, you know, he's very much, it's quite funny actually. We're talking about the sort of Usyk comparison. I hate to bring it up again, but like, both the sort of narrative before they went on these big runs where they suddenly became household names was, they need a good 4 or 5 rounds to bed in. Then they'll start picking you apart. And actually, if you watch the ebb and flow of those fights, sometimes that was true. Crawford would take time to sort of, and he'd still be winning rounds, but he'd take time to sort of figure out and chop down the likes of Amir Khan and Kell Brook. Actually, you spoke about big moments. Like, he needed to pull those big shots out against someone like Sean Porter, right, to really stamp it down the fight. Even against Madrimov, like, he had to just fucking walk him down late on the fight. He couldn't really find his range against this sort of speedy, athletic, in and out kind of sporadic raid type of fighter. And thought, I'll just get on the front foot and bully him down the stretch to win enough rounds to win the fight. But against the big masterpiece, the big opponents where you paint these masterpieces, the Spence and Canelo ones, much the same as Usyk against Fury and Joshua, suddenly from the first round, they're just on.
Yep.
They're on. They take the initiative early, they drown you, and if you're going to come back into the fight, they're going to retake the initiative from you. Like Joshua had the big moments against Usyk. Usyk just beats the shit out of him in the next round. Fury lands the big shots. Usyk walks him down, and in the second fight, rinses him, much the same, as he does in other fights.
Yeah.
Like in the second Joshua fight, for example, he rinses him. Joshua gets the good round against him. Then Usyk's back on top of him in the 10th round, just beating the crap out of him. Eats that right hand, walks him down. In this one, Crawford out jabs Canelo immediately, starts beating him up immediately. And any time Canelo tries to take it back, he's back on him. You look at that versus, say, Crawford from the Porter fight or whatever. Maybe not something like the Avanesian fight where he looked like he was setting him up from the get-go. He's always setting these guys up, but he builds his way into the fights. It almost feels like, I said about fighting to level or your opposition. That isn't just looking sort of bad against guys you don't take seriously, then looking yourself against guys that are better. Mm-hmm. It's looking moderately good against guys that you can beat, but looking better than you've ever looked against the best you faced.
Yeah. And that's all in Crawford. His corner was like, after some of these rounds, you don't need to have a firefight with him. And the commentary, of course, is like, is he getting too comfortable? Is he? Terence Crawford has decided he does want to and need to do this because this is going to convince Canelo that he can't win. This is what's going to... I thought he was going to
take him out at one point because Canelo was falling right over the front foot, and I thought he's going to do the unthinkable here. He didn't, because it is unthinkable, because one day, much like when Julio Cesar Chavez got knocked down the first time against Frankie Randall, even watching that like 10, 12 years after it happened, I had a shiver down my spine. It felt uncanny to see that happen. It will be mental at one point when someone you don't expect chins Canelo. It's going to blow your mind.
Yeah.
That moment is not now. If Terence Crawford isn't going to do it, then maybe no one
but
will.
He definitely put a scare in him. Canelo was feeling those shots, and he was also feeling the humiliation and frustration of not being able to answer them effectively. Like, it was just whatever Canelo's coach's understanding might be, whatever the commentary's understanding might be, Terence Crawford had a mental image of this whole fight in mind and how it was to be conducted. He was just, it's such a cliche, but like, he was in Canelo's head. He just knew how to mentally beat him.
He's been calling this fight for years. He's been calling for this fight since he was at welterweight. He's wanted this fight for a while because he must have watched him and gone, how the fuck is he the biggest star in boxing? I can't beat this guy. Do you know what I mean? Like, he got held up by the PBC thing, which is why he's barely fought, because he had to and ah about whether Spence was getting that immediate rematch, right? Then he does this Riyadh season against Madrimov, which was it in LA last year? That was a bit of a flop, bit of a sort of business flop, right? So wants this fight with Canelo, because sometimes fighters do care about perception, they do care about legacy, and they care about money. And some fighters want to go, and Crawford, as both you guys have said to me, a very unassuming guy for much of his career, even though he's a complete fucking badass. That should be enough to sell him. He's a genius of the ring, and he's just quite a fucking killer. By the way, he got shot in the head and drove himself to the hospital. That's enough to sell a guy. But in today's, you need to be TikTok friendly. It's not really the thing, right? So now he's being sold. Finally, people are going to be, he'd be able to get sold on the fact that, oh my God, look how he just dealt with Canelo. That's exactly why he wanted the fucking fight. So it would prove to people once and for all, after all the man that trees, he was desperate to get Spence in the ring, that he couldn't sort of follow up the momentum due to business issues. We'll blame Al Heyman for that. Typical. And, now he's gone, right, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll make up for lost time. Give me the biggest name of boxing from the last 10 years. I'll rinse him. And he's done it. So he's going to make his legend, and rightly so, because he is a legend of the sport. Now, I hope that he can add some more,
I hope he doesn't
more to his legacy.
Man. How can you see this and hear him say it might be his last fight? It's like,
can be.
Yeah. That was one of the other things I was going to say about him and Usyk, right? Is that both of them facing like What would be like concerning physical challenges at the ages of like 38 and 39? Or they're both 38?
Both about 38, I think, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one in moving up 20 pounds to fight an all-time great. The other one like fighting a young, improving heavyweight in Dubois, and both just like absolutely crushing them, looking like they are in by far the best form of their career at this time, which is, again, such a rare confluence of factors in boxing. The fact that, you get to the peak of your earning potential and you are in fact still incredibly good.
They probably want to retire, but they're like, how the fuck can I retire? I'm beating the fuck out of everyone I come against. You know what I mean? It's crazy. For me, I've said online, and it's been picked up by Cliff Rold of Formative Boxing Scene, who's obviously well known in the community, but I think that Crawford should fight Bivol, and people are going to think I'm crazy, but that's the only... Dropping back down to there's no one at 168 apart from maybe Benavidez who's going to be interesting. And that could be interesting, really could be. That's probably the only fight at 168. 160 is a wasteland, and he's not really... Okay, he could say, I'm a 4-weight unified 4-bout champion, because he beat those guys pretty easily. But that's not really... That's not legacy. That's no different than anyway unifying a shitty bantamweight division, right? If he goes at a Bivol, fights another top 5 pound for pound guy, the guy that beat Canelo, the guy that beat Beterbiev, the guy that's younger than him, even though he's not as young as you think, Bivol, a guy that maybe would have the style to beat him. By the way, Bud's got a longer reach than Bivol, and also Bivol takes like 3 rounds off a fight anyway, so he's only got to win 4 on his own merit. Like, stylistically, Bivol is fairly one-dimensional. He's just brilliant within that dimension. He's like a pure boxer who rages you every so often with pure volume and foot speed, and so good on the pivot. Not a big puncher, so not terrifying in that regard. It's not an impossible task, I think, for Crawford to step up. And actually, if he was going to lose, and you got to build an excuse, they're both undefeated. I think that's the next fight to make. I really do. But Terbiev's off fighting some fight we don't care about. Bivol hasn't got anything lined up. Why not do it? It's another marquee fight. It's another mega fight, right? And people are going to think I'm crazy, but you would have thought, if someone had said it when he was at 135, when he was fighting Gamboa, one day Crawford's going to beat Canelo at super middleweight, you would have thought that you were crazy then, right? So
I'd never even thought about, it was one of those, it would have been one of those fights that like people talk about, and they're like, what would you think about like these two people that I've heard of that are really good boxers fighting each other? And you'd just be like, piss off, they're miles apart, they're never going to fight each other.
Yeah. When people say to me back in the day, do you think we're like Amir Khan or Anthony Joshua? I think one of them will be murdered. You know what I mean? Like, they're both English. It's the only thing. They're both British. It's the only thing that's got going for them. Funny enough, going back to early chat, Tommy Robertson, I used to get a lot into pubs and that. Think of Amir Khan, he's another Prince Nassim, isn't he? And I'd be like, well, stylistically, it's totally different. So what could you possibly mean by that? Well, he's just like, he's what? He's brown.
That's so good. That's so good to know, Kyle. Boxing has its own version of...
One's Pakistan, you know what I mean? They're totally different. They're nowhere near each other. What would you possibly mean?
Boxing has its own version of the next Anderson Silva meme.
Yep.
Exactly, yeah.
Where it just exclusively gets said about skinny black guys.
Yeah. So, Crawford, for me, I think, Bivol is the only thing. I don't know if they're fancy. I don't know if it ever happened. But for me, as a fight fan, as a boxing fan, that's the last one that really, really excites me. Benavidez makes sense. I don't know if it's sort of risk versus reward, might not make sense. But more than anything, just to wrap up my thoughts on it, I really want Crawford to continue fighting, because much like Usyk, he's clearly got a lot left to give. And you're going to need to throw a Moses Uitama sort of strange proposition to get me excited. That's what's going to excite me for Usyk. What's going to excite me for Crawford? Well, if he beat Canelo that easily, then he might be able to have quite a close and competitive fight with Bivol. Imagine if he beats him easily. We might be talking about one of the top 20 greatest fights of all time, not just one of the top 100 greatest fights of all time.
You see, this is already the impression you add in the weight jump, and it makes it more confusing to consider. But every time you watch Crawford fight, you are kind of left thinking, like, what does a bad matchup for Crawford actually look like?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
is there one?
Right. Can he just figure out any style, any physical makeup, anything within, I was going to say within reason, but like, jumping up to 168 already seems out of reason. So like, who is it? Crawford Usyk, that might be a fight he would lose, Yeah,
but then again, we think about like, Crawford fight Bivol seems unrealistic. Sam Langford was unrealistic.
Absolutely.
Why is it that these supernatural fighters only came about in the 1900s, so sort of 1890 to 1940 or whatever? Why do we only have these crazy fighters who are fighting from like 147 to small heavyweight, which Bivol is the equivalent of nowadays, without a 175
Henry
division.
Armstrong.
He wasn't cutting weight. There's someone like Henry Armstrong who fought from featherweight to middleweight. Matchup dependent, of course. Ferreira Garcia was a former welterweight, but why couldn't we have, especially with sports science? And I made a sort of joke about this on my own podcast. Terence Crawford is brilliant and also has modern sports science to help him along, right? So why, with the current sports science that are making these guys be in their prime for longer, guys like Usyk, guys like Crawford, it's not exclusive to Crawford. We've got to, address the elephant in the room. There's a reason. There's many reasons that athletes are able to maintain peak performance for longer nowadays. Mm-hmm. It is, of course, smarter camps. It is not fighting as regularly. It is all those things, but it's, lots of vitamins too, right? Mm-hmm. Why can't we cultivate our own Sam Langford type, and why couldn't it be Terence Crawford? He's this brilliant all-terrain fighter. He was cut and made to 135. He probably is naturally like a 147 guy. 147 and 175. It's not like it hasn't been done before. Roy Jones started his career as a 154-pounder, fought all the way up to heavyweight. It's not crazy, the thing. And the weight cutting wasn't as extreme back then. So I know people are going to say, oh, yeah, Roy Jones actually won his first title at 160. I didn't say he won his first title at 154, but that was around the time he turned pro, wasn't it? He moved through the weights really, really quickly.
Crawford was certainly not small for 147.
135 or 135. He's a lanky weight cutter. Hence why Gamboa was able to buzz him, and Canelo has not been able to because his legs are stronger now. I just think that Crawford's the kind of guy to challenge himself. We know that, right? Why not? The ultimate challenge be Bivol, right? That would be the ultimate challenge. That would be his ceiling, I think, in terms of, and maybe it isn't, but if anyone can do it, he can. So I don't want people to think I'm being unrealistic or putting him into unrealistic scenarios, because I couldn't really envision the Canelo fight. Having now seen it, I can't really envision anyone being Terence Crawford. Now I could picture him in so many different matchups because now I've seen it. Right. I've seen it. And it's not a case of, Bivol beat Canelo, so did Crawford, so we could beat him. It's styles make fights still, right? But seeing him against that size and that caliber of fighter makes me think that nothing's out of the realms of possibility for this guy, because he's just he's a very special guy.
Yeah. I think that is as good a note as any to wrap up this segment on, given that we've talked about this for nearly an hour, and Kyle has to go.
I do.
So
thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us, man.
Arranging it.
A pleasure as always.
Thanks, Phil, for arranging it, of course. I could have done it without you.
I'm working on my secretary outfit and my secretary voice.
We got Maggie Gyllenhaal in that film.
It's just like that. Yeah, it's just like that. That
the only time she was hot. Now, Connor, of course, with his terrible scorecards, is going, actually, I think Maggie Gyllenhaal is always hot. She's not. She's not.
All right. We'll take a break there. I'll go get my hairbrush for Phil. And when we return, we will be talking about Jean Silva, Diego Lopes. Thank you again, Kyle, for joining us. And we'll be back soon.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to this week's Heavy Hands. If you like what you hear, please consider pledging to support the podcast on Patreon. Patreon is basically continuous crowdfunding. You sign up to contribute a certain amount per month to help us with production costs and the like, and in return you get rewards ranging from a mention on the Heavy Hands website to a question or topic of your choice being discussed on the show. We have a lot more in the works to reward you for your help, and we appreciate every contribution. No amount is too small. Just head over to patreon.com and find how you can help out the only show dedicated to the finer points of face punching. Now let's get back to it.
Welcome back to Heavy Hands. Kyle is gone, never to return. It's just you and me, Phil.
Well, unless you tune into that Patreon
Yeah, what was that again?
Segment where we went through all of his disgusting proclivities.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Kyle's Patreon, patreon.com/Combat Chronicles.
No, his one will never go as dark as our one. That conversation we had with him, well,
Yeah.
You know what? I never would have thought that Kyle's fursona would actually be a prawn. Like,
Doesn't
that was
even
crazy.
have fur. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that was maybe the most fucked up thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Well, except for the thing he talked about after that. But hey,
Don't remind me.
he's gone now, and Long John Silva joins the ranks of the now thoroughly defeated Fighting Nerds. The rise and fall of an empire.
Yep.
You know,
The locker has now been filled with their corpses.
they have all been noogied to death. You know, not a great night for old Long John, was it?
Not really. I mean, yeah. Obviously, it was a very bad night for him, but it was one of those fights where I found myself watching it, like thinking. I mean, I've seen a lot of people be very happy with watching him get his comeuppance because he has, many antics and the barking and the like playing up to the cameras and so on. And, he's obviously gifted by God. But yeah, this did feel like a fight where a lot of it just did feel like hubris incarnate.
I kind of agree. Yeah.
I didn't feel happy about it in the same way other people did. I was like, yeah, you got what was coming to you. Because I mostly only feel like this about people who I was going to come up with some, people who are genuinely bad or something like that. I'm just going to say, I only feel like this for people who I myself get irrational dislikes for.
Yeah.
That are often like tied to absolutely nothing. But I don't feel like that about John Silva. I think he's tremendously fun to watch. But still, like, this was a fight which, despite, him getting thrashed for much of the first round and eventually getting knocked out, I felt like pretty much everything that happened was just everything bad that happened to him was just a result of his own hubris.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I mean, I think we've seen fights to contrast with this from Jean Silva where he's taking things a little more seriously, where he has a little more respect for his opponent. And we saw that Bryce Mitchell fight as a wonderful sort of companion piece to this performance, where he was just fucking around the entire time and getting like fixated on crazy trick shots and stuff. I think this was much closer to the Bryce Mitchell performance, with the major difference being that when Diego Lopes grappled him, it really, really, really worked.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, like, this was essentially him thinking he could treat Diego Lopes like he treated Bryce Mitchell, which at the time I thought kind of sensible. Like, you're clearly in Bryce Mitchell's head. You're in his dreams, for God's sake. Go in there, scare the shit out of him, embody the demon he believes you to be, shut down and ignore everything he does. It kind of, even if I wouldn't have expected it ahead of time, watching it play out, it certainly made sense. Mm-hmm. Just pasting that same attitude onto a fight with Diego Lopes, I think we have a clear case of Jean Silva having bought his own bullshit.
Yeah. And, you could see him trying to pull himself back from that because, we mentioned the the grappling in this fight and basically said, there's no indication that Diego Lopes is actually a particularly effective wrestler, any better than Bryce Mitchell, probably worse. But that doesn't matter because Jean Silva threw an incredibly poorly timed spinning back kick and simply got body locked and thrown on the floor.
Yep.
And yeah, that was the main dynamic for like of the main note of caution that we called for this fight, which is that John Silva is always expecting people to be awed by the stuff that he is doing.
Yeah.
And Diego Lopes may not have had actually many of the like technical pieces to ensure that he could like put John Silva in bad positions. But one thing he absolutely does have is complete fearlessness and massive durability. And so that like when John Silva does some, goes for some crazy shot, most people are thinking, oh my God, I must get away or else he's going to tear my head off. Diego Lopes was simply thinking, oh, I can punch him now.
Yep.
Good. Great. You like punching people.
Yep. I think that was the decisive factor, honestly. We did talk about, this is the thing with Diego Lopes too, and why we hemmed and hawed a bit about this fight, is that compared to John Silva, he's pretty easy to understand.
Mm-hmm.
So hard to miss this fact, but still fortunate that we talked about Diego Lopes's hair trigger, dare I say, automatic counterpunching.
Yeah.
Which was absolutely key to not getting actually run over when John Silva started to come back. Because Silva did not come back with the kind of stuff I was highlighting in his game. He didn't come back by like getting the fight under control, keeping Diego Lopes at bay, making him reset his feet over and over. When they were at range, he was mostly just standing in front of Diego Lopes, looking to front kick him in the face over and over and over again. That was the cool idea he came up with for this fight, obviously, that he was fixated on. But when the momentum shifted, it was John Silva becoming very, very, very aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, unlike his teammates, his grave mates now, locker mates, I suppose, he was throwing a lot of combinations. But despite hitting Diego Lopes really clean and actually visibly hurting him on numerous occasions, which says something about the speed and power of John Silva, he just kept getting hit at the end of the exchanges.
Yeah.
And, maybe it's because he was throwing combinations, or maybe it's because he came into this fight so evidently arrogant. Like, I think John Silva normally does. I think I highlighted this, in fact. He normally does actually have a pretty good eye and awareness for shots coming back at him.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it was just the desperation and aggression, forcing, but even when there were single shots, like he kept going for that left hook to the body, and he ate a left hook upstairs almost every single time he went for that, because Diego Lopes would just eat the shot and immediately catch and pitch, fire back. So yeah, that's why it's hard for me. I've seen other performances from John Silva. I saw him fight Drew Dober, and he was not this wild and this sort of unstructured. So
yeah,
go on.
I kept thinking that he was, well, at the beginning he was just thinking, I'm going to do whatever. This was just being incredibly confident.
Yeah.
And then, round two, I think he genuinely, he started to think, okay, I have to fight this guy properly. And he did actually start, throwing away the silly kicks, setting up his combinations, just kind of boxing with Diego. And yeah, occasionally he was getting hit on the end of combinations, but he was also like very clearly and very visibly winning.
Yeah, no question.
But he just couldn't be satisfied with winning. He couldn't be satisfied with that. And you just saw like the stupidity like ramp up over the course of the round. Like the more success he got, the more stupid he started trying to be with like the spinning back elbow, and just the ending. The ending sequence is just him overextending, and then Lopez hits his own like completely random spinning elbow that just clips him on the top of the head, and that's it.
Yep.
Like he just can't accept just winning. He has to have like completely destroyed his opponent.
Yep.
Like they have to know that he was the alpha in there, and that he was the one who was like that he's destroyed them, and he just pushes it forward until he's just wrecked. But if he just sat there and done what he did for that most of that second round for just the rest of the fight, he probably would have knocked Diego Lopes out.
Yeah, absolutely. He hurt him multiple times. Yeah, there's nothing about this fight that makes it look like this is not a very winnable matchup for Jean Silva.
Mm-hmm.
But it was brainless performance. It's just hard to escape that conclusion. Like, he just made some really, really bad decisions and was not thinking clearly, was not in control of himself. And I don't know how to explain that. Maybe it's just an accumulation of confidence from all of his wins and everything. Maybe it was something in particular about Diego Lopes, a guy who would both be happy to touch gloves with him once at the start of each round, but also was completely unafraid and felt no overabundance of respect that would prevent him from just hitting Jean Silva back very hard. Maybe it was Diego Lopez's power. I don't know. But Jean Silva has had some pretty crazy, high-paced, violent brawls before, and he has always been more considered than he was here. It was a particularly reckless and wild performance. Maybe it was just that it started so fucking bad. You know?
Yeah.
That made when he was able to get the momentum back, he got completely overexcited or even desperate to put a cap on it because the first round was disastrous.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just that, like, I think it's a question of him feeling like he needs to turn the volume up on things, you know? That his view of himself has to be bigger than everything that's happening. Because at the end of that first round, he's like, you know, he's sort of laughing and wiping the blood off his face and posturing, and as he walks back to his corner, and sort of trying to laugh and high five Diego and like clapping as well and stuff.
Right.
And he's clearly like quite upset.
Right.
Like while he's doing this, like the bravado and the fact that he just kind of got his ass kicked are really fighting each other.
Yeah.
And he just has to, you get the impression he just, inside himself, he just has to try and drown it out. And he's trying to drown it out by getting, you know, and in the fight, he tries to drown it out by essentially just forcing the finish on someone who's virtually unfinishable.
Yeah. Very, very difficult to finish.
But yeah, incredibly fun fight, though.
Oh, a banger. Yeah, a ridiculous banger. Also, I gotta say, and I think some of this is just because Jean Silva's really used to his athleticism being the edge in scrambles, and you could see that. Like in the second round of this fight, he pulled some pretty crazy moves in scrambles to escape getting stuck in on bottom again. There was one where, I'm trying to remember the specifics of it, where he did like a backflip over Diego Lopez's back as he was basically completely down, just to prevent him establishing a good position of control. There was a moment when Lopes had like a kind of high crotch position behind Jean Silva, and he had to kind of creatively get back to his feet and strip those grips. The intuition and the athleticism are there in those moments. They were not there when he was stuck in mount. But I think that is also a testament to the fact that Diego Lopes should improve his takedown game.
Yeah.
Because that was a terrifyingly consistent and dominant mount. A high mount. He was sitting on on Jean Silva's chest, like on his shoulders almost. There was simply no way out, and using those 12-6 elbows, just carving up the top of his head, there was no safe position for Jean Silva in that mount, and he could not get out of it.
Yeah,
and most
because that is not a position which MMA fighters are able to hold very much nowadays.
Yeah,
and Lopez's ability to just float his hips, keep his weight on top, like, yeah, he's a very, very good grappler.
Yeah. But it was just the positioning too. It was such a high mount. I mean, in jiu-jitsu, you guys know this, that's a far better control position than mounting someone and staying on their hips. Like if you're on their hips, you can't posture basically. If the guy knows what he's doing, you have to stay low and like grapevine the legs or whatever and keep intense pressure on their lower abdomen with your hips, because otherwise they're going to buck and you will start to lose the position. Diego Lopes just sitting like crotch in Jean Silva's face, so high in his chest that all the bucking and twisting in the world made literally no difference to the position. It was simply a waste of energy. This man should be taking people down a lot more often, because that was a tremendous display of control, and clearly he can be dangerous and effective from that position even without a submission opportunity. So, like I said, a performance that doesn't really like lower the stock of Jean Silva, but it definitely puts, it gives us some helpful new perspective on what a bad performance from him might look like. The sort of lack of discipline and control that he might be capable of, that he is capable of. And on the flip side,
I think
Diego Lopes, consistent, tough. Very often, that's all it takes.
Yep. Always said it's the most valuable thing to have in MMA.
Yeah.
Just pure durability.
Yep.
There's a single physical trait. That's the one you want.
Yep. And a willingness to use it and understanding of how to use it. That's why it's so difficult to run Diego Lopes out of a fight, because he fully knows he can take your shots and he is ready to hit you back even as you're hitting him. Very tough to overcome that.
Yep.
What else jumped out to you on this card? We
This wasn't a great card.
I agree.
I'm gonna be like it was the opposite of the previous week's card in France.
Yeah.
Where like the crowd just seemed to make everything pop off. This was just not like a very exciting fight card.
Yeah. And mostly that has to do with the booking. The Paris card was genuinely well booked, in a classic kind of way, bringing in all of these like proven regional talents. All the new signings were guys who had like won, and frequently most of them had defended a championship in some regional promotion. And in this case, this was booked much more like, who do we have that's sort of Mexican?
Yep.
And you could see a difference. The quality of the matches was reflected by the matchmaking.
Yep.
You know, there were a couple of highlights, like, for example, I think we learned something about Rob Font in the co-main event, which was a short notice bout against David Martinez. Was initially supposed to be Raul Rosas Jr. So tough to take too much away as far as preparation goes, both guys fighting each other on pretty short notice. However, Rob Font very probably nearing the end of his career, if not already in the death throes, because he was simply not fast enough either to consistently catch up with David Martinez or to get any kind of read on Martinez's offense. and he looked very foot slow and very cumbersome. This was not a particularly good outfighting performance from David Martinez. Just a lot of literally running away.
Yep.
Like rarely.
Fast low kicks that he landed on occasion.
Yep.
And then just legging it.
Yep. But Rob Font was made to look like a very lumbering, concrete-footed fighter.
Yep.
And I was infuriated throughout this entire fight to hear Dominic Cruz talking about how, of course, Rob Font's jab just doesn't exist whenever Martinez is a southpaw.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is like mistaking description for prescription.
Yep.
Because,
because it doesn't.
Yeah, like it is often the case that the jab doesn't exist, and a lot of fighters, orthodox fighters, will struggle to make their jab work, especially the first time they face a southpaw. Dominic Cruz has taken this and said, "This is a rule. You can't use your jab against a southpaw. Not because you rarely see it done effectively in MMA. It must mean that it just doesn't work." But it didn't work here. Rob Font was utterly clueless as to how to set up his shots whenever David Martinez was a southpaw, and he also couldn't see the counters coming.
Yeah. And it was also that he couldn't force a fight on someone who was clearly, had absolutely zero interest in counterpunching.
Yeah.
Every time Rob Font closed in, Martinez did one of two things, which was feint like he was going to throw a strike and then run away.
Yep.
Or run away.
Yep.
And it was only when Rob Font paused to think that Martinez would kick him once and then run away.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy this card at many points. I was just watching this like, oh my God.
One other result then, just to mention before we get out of here, since we talked plenty long about Crawford Alvarez. Alexander Hernandez versus Diego Ferreira. This was one of the more interesting pieces of matchmaking on the card. And an interesting thing is happening with Alexander Hernandez. I thought this performance lined up very neatly with his last win over Chase Hooper. Which is that now Hernandez is successfully beating people pretty much entirely off the back foot.
Yeah.
And yet, I don't look at any of these performances and think, this guy is no longer going to get run over by a good committed pressure fighter. Because it's a lot of movement, a lot. And that's really the key, and a lot of direction changing. And look, there are times, even you watch good boxers do it, you could see Terence Crawford doing this all the time against Alvarez, where it's fine to step out of your stance as long as you get the opponent chasing you, and you can catch the timing of their intercepting footwork to misdirect them. You get a lot more mobility when you square up, a lot more side-to-side mobility. However, that can't be the only way you know how to circle. Terence Crawford also did a lot of great, tight, smooth pivoting against Canelo Alvarez. And whenever the distance was closed, he was sure to get into a good stance and be ready to time that pivot so that he could separate and remain in an effective position. Alexander Hernandez has not shown me that. In these two performances, he has simply gotten two opponents who cannot cut the cage off against him. Who are...
I mean, this simply reminds me of, prime, quote-unquote, Alexander Hernandez.
Yeah.
This is just how this is the bizarre thing, right? Is that he arrived in the UFC, had some shocking performances, knocked out Dariush or whoever it was, and then skyrocketed up the ranks with that and one more other impressive win. Sort of doing this Ersatz Dillashaw impression,
Mm-hmm.
and via Dariush being chinny and so on, and then gets obliterated by Cerrone, and then spends all these years in the wilderness and like develops this like boxing game where he's fighting in the pocket and he's trying to throw combinations and it's almost working, but it isn't quite. And he's trying to counterpunch and protect himself on the back foot, but he's still got this tendency to just run out the pocket when things get tough. And and he's been through all these transformations, and then like now he's built a little run of success, and he looks a lot like he did when he came to the UFC.
Yeah, just back to square one,
and just back to the beginning. And it's that he's like fighting a chinny old dude, and he knocks him out. And he's fighting Chase Hooper, who is not a chinny old dude, but is Chase Hooper. Yeah.
Knocks him out.
Because who else was it that Hernandez fought? Like Olivier Aubin-Mercier, which I thought was a genuinely impressive win at the time. He just physically couldn't hang with him. And in no way would Chase Hooper ever really be able to hang with any physically intact version of Alexander Hernandez.
Right.
So it was a little dispiriting, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. That's just the only one I look on this card where it's like, oh, here's like a developing fighter, or at least someone who like I have a clear understanding of their limitations, and so I want to see how those shake out over time. I've been invested in the Hernandez journey, almost more so than when he won. I've been invested in his journey since that first loss to Cerrone.
Yep.
And just seeing this problem repeated, but also seeing him still be a guy that it takes a very good fighter to beat most of the time. But, it's a head scratcher that he's now, I think you're right. He has like reverted to a primordial form, but I see no reason to think that the problems aren't still there. And that's mostly because I don't think either of these guys did a good job of exploiting his approach.
No, I mean, he's on the longest winning streak of his UFC career at the moment.
Yeah.
Over Austin Hubbard, Kurt Hollabaugh, Chase Hooper, and Carlos Diego Ferreira.
Yeah. And by the way, Austin Hubbard gave him a tough fight, and Hollabaugh nearly got him out of there in classic Hernandez loss fashion in the third round.
Mm-hmm.
Because Hernandez could not figure out how to get off the bike and actually stay in a good position to deal with the intense pressure Hollabaugh was bringing to him at that point.
Yes, but, Hollabaugh is old.
Yep. They're all
he's
old.
Tricky, but he's old. CDF is old, and Chase Hooper is
the opposite of old.
Yeah.
He's 14 years old.
Yeah. So he called out, who was it? Chandler, which would actually be a genuinely interesting matchup in many ways. But I do think that even a washed Chandler would be terribly hard for him.
You think the Chandler who lost to Paddy Pimblett would be hard for him? That was a very, very washed-looking Michael Chandler, Phil.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No,
I think a fairly smart and cynical call out from Alexander Hernandez. I support that. If he's not going to fix his problems,
if you're in the UFC and you don't think you can beat Michael Chandler, what are you doing?
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, I still think I'm not sure.
You're picturing a lot of pressuring performances from Michael Chandler. You're not picturing the scared, uncertain, hesitant man who got destroyed by Paddy Pimblett on the feet.
No, I'm just thinking that Hernandez wouldn't do much. He would just be like doing his going around on the back foot thing, and then eventually Chandler would I'd be like, oh my god, this guy's scared of me, and then he'd just bum rush him and knock him out.
Yeah, maybe it would fill Michael Chandler with the confidence he so clearly needs.
Yep.
Maybe. Well, I hope we get to see it. We can talk about that one down the road, but that truly is, I think, the last fight of note of any kind on this card.
I mean, Tatiana Suarez.
Oh, of course, Suarez.
Given a kind of gimme, and it's not really a gimme. Amanda Lemos can grapple, and she's big and strong.
Yeah.
It was like, was that really a bad performance from you? Are you actually washed, or you simply just never fought anyone as good as Weili Zhang? And clearly the answer was 2. And Kelvin Gastelum once again, blowing weight in an incredibly cynical way, and at middleweight no less. And getting away with it again.
Yep. It's a perfect cover, by the way, for Gastelum, isn't it? He spent his entire career being known as the guy with like no dietary discipline.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's like, he can just come in and cynically blow his weight for a grappling advantage and be like, well, you know me. Oops.
Yeah. The fact that they like deliberately tried to give him like a feel-good light touch fight so that they could have him get a win on the Noche card. They're like, fight this guy.
Fight the slowest man in the UFC.
Yeah, and he still like didn't even look good.
Yeah. Yep. So, you heard it here first. The UFC prefers French people to Latin Americans.
Yeah,
because this is what they felt was warranted for an event geared towards that latter market. Hey, next week we do have a pretty decent looking fight night card, I will say. Main event: Carlos Ulberg versus Dominic Reyes. Inexplicably, we have Junior Tafa versus Ibo Aslan as the co-main event.
Sorry, what? It's what?
Yeah.
It's good. This isn't good.
It's got some stuff at least. Jack Jenkins, Ramon Tavares is a cool fight. I'm actually interested in Jake Matthews, Neil Magny. You know.
My God. Are you?
Well, not that
What about
interested.
Jake Matthews says that he's not going to fall to the Hypnotoad?
I'm interested in... I'm interested... Well, that's why I'm interested. How much Hypnotoad power remains. Navajo Sterling versus Adolfo Bellato is a cool prospect development fight.
You're a better man than me, Connor. I just simply look down this card and I'm like, light heavyweight. By the way, light heavyweight. Wait, heavyweight, light heavyweight. Like, oh.
Well, maybe the card will fall apart. But by the time we have to talk about it next week, and we'll have even less to talk about. So you better appreciate it while you have it, Phil.
I refuse. I won't. You can't make me.
This is as good as it's going to get.
Shut
All right. Well, we will be back to discuss and make what we can of that. Maybe we'll come up with a segment 3 topic again. That's always fun. Maybe the topic will be why UFC do you give us something like that Paris card and then go back to this? But
they got to get rid of the. They got to book the light heavyweight somewhere. At least it's concentrated.
Yeah, they're getting them all out of the way here, and at least it's got a good main event. It's actually an interesting, meaningful main event. You know, it's something. All right. But that's for next week. We hope you all enjoyed today's show. I want to say thank you again to our dear friend Kyle for coming on. Always a pleasure to have a discussion with him. You should find him on Twitter at Combat Chronicles. I think it's the full thing now, isn't it?
I think so.
Let me double check that. No, it's still at Combat CR.
Yep.
He couldn't get Combat CHR. It bothers me that he missed that silent H. Anyway, Find Kyle on Twitter there. Find Phil at Evil Greg Jackson. Find me at Boxing Bush. And we'll be back next week. Until then, if you came here today for the finer points of face punching, you came to the right place. This has been Heavy Hands.